Okay, we're going to try this again for the third time. I hope everyone is doing well. We are joining the conversation or continuing the conversation on addiction. This is a part of our campaign to go live every single day. So I am very excited about being on tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I know that we're not going to have as many folks on because we're starting to have the conversations here on the Breaking Chains Project. So without further ado, today we talked about a few things. We talked about addiction and what is addiction. And to my surprise, I found an interesting definition today that I want to share with you. Addiction, according to dictionary.com, says it means to be enslaved to a habit or a practice that physically or psychologically alters an individual. And this is so very important to recognize that oftentimes when people go through addiction, it is something beyond a control. Some of us have a lot of bad habits. Some of us have unhealthy habits. But when we talk about addiction, it means being out of control of what is psychologically and physically controlling you. And so we want to recognize that this is something that is real, that people deal with, and it shows up in many ways. We asked a few questions on tonight, and we wanted folks to be connected and engage. And I know that as we're starting to transition to the Breaking Chains Project and asking questions on a Breaking Chains Project, it's shifting things up a little bit. That's why I need you to start encouraging folks to like the Breaking Chains Project page, share the videos out so that we are able to get the word out to folks, because it's so very important that people know that we're having these conversations and that there's help and there's hope for them. We talked about what causes. We asked the question, what can cause addictive behavior? And honestly speaking, many things can cause addictive behavior. Some of the things that can cause addictive behavior is high stress, managing your stress. Sometimes when we are so stressed, sometimes when we are going through things and it seems so heavy and so alarming that we don't know where else to go, oftentimes that could be a root cause of why people would become addicted to certain things. It's like, oh my God, my job really stresses me out, so when I get home I just binge watch TV for hours because it makes me feel better. And that can become an addiction. Watching TV can be an addiction, and us making that known. We often think about addictions as something that has to do with just substances or something that has to do with just alcohol, but there's so many things, and we're going to talk about that in a bit, that you can be addicted to. And so it's important that we bring to light that addiction is not just alcohol and drugs. It can be games, it can be so many other things, and we're going to talk about that again coming up in just a few moments. But what causes addictive behavior? We talked about stress levels. Also, one of the things that can cause an addictive behavior is having a parent who has struggled with addiction. Let's think about this for a second. When you are around certain behaviors and you're around certain things, you can become like that thing that you are around. That is a transfer of spirit. That's what we call it. And so oftentimes people will become addicted, not because addicted to whatever it is that they become addicted to, not because they had a trauma in their life or something that shifted their entire world, but because they may have witnessed it from their mother or father. They may have witnessed it from their grandparents or from their uncles and aunties, and it's become a learned behavior. It's become acceptable to say, you know what, this is happening because this is happening because of something that someone else inflicted on them. And so when we think about addiction, so many things can come up for folks. And so we recognize that not everybody has to have a trauma in order to be addicted. Right? Sometimes people can be born to parents who are addicted to drugs or addicted to sex or addicted to certain things, and they pick up that habit. And recognizing that there's so many root causes for addiction. Another one can be a severe trauma. It can be someone who's gone through, I've endured this trauma and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to escape my anger. I don't know how to escape my feelings of powerlessness. And so oftentimes people may become addicted because that is something that gives them power. That is something that gives them a form of control. And so recognizing that may also be a key to folks having addictive behavior. Okay, we also talked about injury. An injury can cause it. Someone can have an illness that may lead to depression. It's like, well, I want to escape. I knew someone who was very ill, very old and very ill, and the last thing he wanted to do was to do what he most familiar, what was most familiar to him when he was getting when he was younger, and that was getting high. So even though he was old, he was ill, he knew he was going to die, he wanted to continue to do that drug because it was helpful for him to cope with the situation that he was dealing with. So again, an injury, a severe trauma, a parent with an addiction history or high stress can be cause for mental ill. It can be cause for addiction. So we want to bring that to light. One of the most important things that stood out to me about addiction is that it can be caused by mental illness. Good evening, Eve. Good evening. Good evening. Addiction can be caused by mental illness. And some of us don't recognize that. You know, somebody can be dealing with depression. Someone can be dealing with stress and trauma or PTSD or whatever it is that they may be dealing with. And that may cause an addictive behavior. We're going to talk about what some of those addictive behaviors are, because it's not just drugs and alcohol. Okay? Addictive behavior can also equate to psychological trauma. What happened to you that most people feel like they couldn't cope with in their mental, and it caused, like, you know what, I'm really dealing with this, and this is causing me so much stress. It's causing me so much stress. It's causing me so many headaches. It's causing me so much heartache. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I need to escape what I feel. And so now I'm going to find something that helps me escape. That's how addictions begin. When we find a coping strategy, a negative coping strategy for helping us to deal with something that we refuse to deal with, or helping us to get by, or helping us to cope with something temporarily, right? So you have folks who have high stress that start smoking one cigarette, and that one cigarette becomes a whole pack every day. And so recognizing that can definitely inflict an addictive behavior. I want you all to chime in. We're talking about addiction. We talked about what is addiction and now what causes addictive behavior. And so another thing that stood out to me, and this is going to be wow for some folks, is that addiction, hi Jay, addiction, people can be addicted to other people. Did you know that? I knew it, but I had to look at it tonight. We can be addicted to other behaviors, right? And it's amazing. It's amazing how we can be addicted to other behaviors, and that is called codependency. Has anybody ever heard of the term codependency? Codependency is an excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner. This is all relational. We can be addicted to other people. Have you ever been with someone, and we could call that an extreme soul tattoo? Have you ever been with someone you felt like you were nothing without, or you felt like you could not survive without that person? That could have been an addiction. That could have been an extreme soul tie. That could have been a negative connection that may not have been the best for you. It could have been an escape. And oftentimes we would find those means of escape when we don't want to deal with ourselves, right? That's why it's so important. Healing is so very necessary, because we have to learn how to deal with ourselves. We have to learn how to face the reality. You know what? I may have witnessed this addiction, but that doesn't mean it has to control me, right? Okay. So I asked the question earlier, and I was amazed by the responses that I had. And I asked, can there be healthy addictions, right? And there were a lot of people that was like, yes. There were a lot of people that was like, no. Absolutely, Teresina, it can happen with people. It definitely can. It can happen with people. I don't know what I'm going to do without this person. Without this person, I don't know if I can survive. Without this person, I don't know if I can actually make it. Without this person, I don't know if I'm going to actually be okay. And that can be an addictive behavior. That's called codependency. You know what? Everything I need, I can get it from my partner. I don't need anyone else. I could get it from my partner. We often run people away because that is a behavior that a lot of people don't understand, one, and it is literally the product of us not dealing with ourselves. It's us not dealing with ourselves. So I asked earlier today. Yes, absolutely, Jay. Thank you so much. You can be addicted. You can have healthy addictions. Healthy addictions can be, and I want to, a part of what BCP wants to do, we want to reclaim the negative terms. We want to reclaim stuff that people don't really talk about, like anger. That's always been a negative response. Oh, this person is angry, so all of a sudden we just think that they're a horrible person. That's not the case. Angry can be a positive emotion. And we want to reclaim some of these terms. So addiction can be positive as well. I know someone said earlier, it's only an addiction when it causes harm, and that's not as accurate. In when you're dealing with folks who are on substances and different things like that. Yes, that is very true. But addiction can also be positive. Like Jay said, you could be addicted to being healthy. You could be addicted to eating healthy. I love eating healthy food. You could be addicted to drinking water. Jay, I hope you did that gallon. Look. I'm working on it. I hope you did that gallon challenge today. But we could be addicted to healthy foods. So we could be addicted to drinking water. We could be addicted to reading. Addicted to learning. Addicted to cleaning. Somebody said addicted to cleaning. Now, here's the key about healthy addictions. It is only a healthy addiction when it's not causing you guilt, when it's not causing you shame, when it's not causing helplessness or hopelessness, despair, failure, rejection, anxiety, or humiliation. What do I mean by that? So you can be addicted to exercising, and it could be a positive addiction unless when you start looking at yourself in the mirror, you're like, oh my God, I'm so fat, I got to work out some more. And you begin to get stressed out about your addiction to exercising. I hope that makes sense for folks. So it could be a positive response. It can be a positive behavior. Okay. So I definitely want to bring that to light. So we talked about what are the signs. Yes, Jay, the sit-up challenge, I got it tonight. I'm going to record myself doing it too for accountability, but I definitely want to let you all know that I'm going to do that exercise. I'm going to post that on the page too, because I want folks to be healthy as well. I'm going to post that if that's okay. Somebody challenged us to an ab exercise or ab workout for 30 days. I want to post that so folks can feel like you can be healthy as well in every other endeavor as we're having these conversations, okay? What are the signs, y'all? I need y'all to talk to me. I have 4 people on here. What are the signs? What are the signs of a person who has an addiction? How do you know that a person has an addiction? How do you know? Do you always know, or do you not know sometimes? Like, what shows up when a person is addicted? Does anybody know that answer? I mean, it's no right or wrong. I'm just curious to know if anybody knows that. Signs of a person who is addicted or has addictive behaviors can be risk-taking. They take extreme risk. Absolutely, Jay. Sometimes you don't know. And that falls into solitude. There are people who distance themselves. When they feel like they have an addiction, they want to distance themselves. They want to put themselves in a box where they don't want people to see them, especially when you play certain roles. I'm going to move this out of the way because the lighting is getting really bad. But sometimes when you all... when you're going through something rather, and you don't want anyone to see you going through that, people will distance themselves. So you don't know at all the times that people are addicted. There's some people who are open about it, right? You'll see people drinking, or you'll see people doing things, and they begin to get aggressive, or they begin to isolate, or not isolate, they begin to get aggressive, or they begin to get irritable. There are ways that you could tell if a person has an addiction. And the reason why we're talking about this tonight, I know this is probably not the most fun conversation, but the reason why we talk about this tonight is because this is what we shared yesterday during the Hour of Power. We're failing some of our young people. We're failing some of our family members. We're failing some of the people in our lives because we just don't know what to look for. We don't know what addiction is. We don't talk about it enough to know a lot of what it is. And so a lot of times people are showing the signs on our faces, and we're just saying, oh, they got an attitude today. No, it's all good. And that may not be the case. The case may be that they're really trying to express themselves and we're just missing it. And I'm not saying doing it just for other people. We're also learning this for ourselves. It's so important that we understand what addiction is. It's so important that we understand what suicide is, or depression, and all of these things are, so that we are able to better help other people get through. So another sign that a person is addicted is excessive consumption. Relationship problems can cause a person, a relationship problem can be a sign that a person has an addiction. Financial problem. Do y'all know how expensive it is? It is expensive to have an addiction. I don't know. I don't do drugs like that or anything. I haven't done that, and I'm not shaming anybody who does. But for folks who know about marijuana and all of those other drugs, you know that it's expensive. I've been around it enough to know how much it costs. Okay. And so I recognize that is an expensive addiction. And oftentimes people who have an addiction have financial problems. They don't know how to get themselves out, but they know that if they just smoke a little bit or they drink a little bit, they're going to feel better. And here's the thing about addiction, y'all. And this is about addiction to people, addiction to whatever. Addiction is an escape, but it doesn't change the core problem. It doesn't change the problem. It doesn't change the reason why you started the addiction anyway. And we often are deceived by our addiction because it makes us feel good for 5 minutes. It makes us feel good for 10 days. It makes us feel good for whatever it is or however long it is we use it. But we're still missing it. We're still not dealing with ourselves. So after we come down from our high, after we come down from sex, after we come down from watching pornography and all of these things that we may be addicted to, after we finish playing the game for 12 hours, we still feel bad. And so the addiction continues to grow. So people begin to have a higher tolerance for their addiction. And it gets to be a illness. People literally lose control and don't know how to stop what it is that they started trying to escape the very thing that they needed to deal with. Everything is interconnected. It's so connected. You know, what are some of the ways that what are some of the things that people could be addicted to? I know earlier folks said gambling, sex, internet, pornography, work. People could be addicted to exercise. That's more of a positive. People can, of course, be addicted to drugs and alcohol. People could be addicted to actions. People could be addicted to people. People could be addicted to a lot. Names of the stuff I haven't named. One of the most things that people could be addicted to is painkillers. Or medications, prescription medications. People can be addicted to that. I know folks who have literally become addicted to Percocet. People can be addicted to drama. Absolutely. People can literally. I read a thing the other day. It says drama just doesn't happen by happenstance. Drama just don't happen like that. Drama comes, by inviting it, by associating with it. And it was another thing I can't remember. But drama just. Like, there are people who are addicted. Stuff just don't feel right if there's no chaos in their life. And so recognizing that can be an addiction. That can be a negative addiction. And it can have so many negative impacts. So yeah, talking about addiction and talking about how it impacts us. The next question we asked is how do you overcome an addiction? But before we ask how do you overcome addiction, how can you help someone who's addicted? If we don't get nothing else from this video tonight, because I know we have 4 viewers tonight. I wasn't expecting a high view count, right? Because we're starting live on the Breaking Chains Project. We need you to tell folks that in order for them to get this lit live, they got to come onto the page, because we're going to be live on here every day. So this is going to be a continuous movement. However, how do you help someone who is addicted? And I'm going to give you some time to think about that, because a lot of us don't know. And that's the reality. And that's why we have these conversations, because we don't know how to help someone in addiction or who has an addiction. We don't know how to help ourselves with our own addictions. I'm not going to sit here and act like I've never been addicted to anything. For folks who know me, one of my greatest addictions, I'm going to say it out loud because I want to be held accountable. One of my greatest addictions is cornstarch. Y'all probably be like, what is that? I eat cornstarch. I've always loved cornstarch, right? Both of y'all said the same thing. I don't even know if y'all realized that. Great minds think alike. I was addicted, or I have calmed down from my addiction. I still consume it from cornstarch, where I eat it frequently because it gives me something that I need. But the real core of the problem is, the reason why I do it is because my iron is low. And so I need to substitute the cornstarch, because that's unhealthy for something that's healthy. So I'm not going to sit here in front of y'all right now to say to y'all that I don't have an addictive problem with certain things. I'm being very transparent to let you know that we're having this conversation because we need to help each other. How do you help someone who has an addiction? It doesn't always have to be drugs or alcohol. How do you help someone who's doing risky stuff because of their sexual addiction? How do you help somebody do that? And you all said not enabling. You're absolutely right. The answer isn't long at all. Support. And it may be hard when you talk about folks who are on heavy drugs. It may be hard to show support. Consistency. Love, not enabling, and also not trying to change a person. So often we get into this space where we want to change. We want to change folks. And we can't. You know what you're doing is wrong. And we want to shame people. That's the problem. We spend so much time shaming people, and we're not picking anyone up. We're not lifting anyone up. We're not saying, you know what? I love you. Even where you are right now. And I want you to know that there's help for you when you're ready. You want to know why? Because in those moments of despair, that person may reflect back on what you said. Teresita says that's hard. Because they have to want the help. You're absolutely right. They have to want the help. That's where support comes in. And sometimes you have to support people lovingly from a distance. We're not saying, oh yeah, let them come in your house and just, no. Sometimes we have to support people from a distance. Okay, that's better. Okay. Sometimes we have to support people from a distance. We have to say, you know what? I love you. I'm here for you. But I need you to get yourself together. I need you to be ready for this change. Because there's always help. And so recognizing that not everybody has a drug addiction, right? So how do we help people who sit at the computer all day because they're addicted to the internet? How do we help people who is addicted to pornography? Who can't help but watch it because it's something in them that just needs that in order to survive. And Jay, you're absolutely right. It's hard when it's your child. It is so hard when it's your child. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to share a story with you. For a period in my life, I was a youth pastor. And so the parents had a hard time dealing with their kids. They had a hard time because the kids naturally don't want to talk to their parents, you know, for whatever reason. And so the kids would talk to me, right? And so I would have to now go to the parent and lovingly share with them what the child said to me so that they could be able to support their child. But it was very important that when they found out or that they knew what was going on, that they would love their child through it. Because if they would fuss and cuss at them and tell them about how less of a person that they are, then they would have gotten nowhere. The child would have gotten nowhere, and they would have lost trust with me. I would have lost trust with them, and they would have lost trust with their parents. And so it's very difficult, yes, when it is your child. But I trust that even when it is your child, that you would be able to find it in your heart or in whatever strength that you have to support your child through it. Even from a distance. When we talk about teenagers, our children get to a point, when I was a teenager, I didn't want my father to sit down and teach the Bible to me. I wanted to explore and live. I thought I was grown. And so we have to recognize the mindsets of our children and give them the space. So how do you lovingly help someone who is going through an addiction? It's just by giving them the space to be. Because sometimes people, and I shared this yesterday on the Hour of Power, sometimes when we talk to people, even in where we are right now, we don't always want the answer from people. We sometimes want them to just listen and support, and we want to know that they're there for us when we need them. And so it can be hard. But definitely the worst thing that you could ever do to someone who has an addiction is to try and change them or to try and shame them, because you now have lost that person. And that's painful. And it's hard, Jay, especially when you that parent. It's like, now you know better, right? We say that to our children all the time, right? You know better. And that's fine. They do know that they know that they know better. But we have to figure out, this is a new generation. We have to figure out new ways to communicate with our children where it can be constructive and not destructive. Jay says, I still love and support her, but it's hard when you find out she's addicted to someone that's abusing her. Absolutely, Jay. I'm right here with you, right? It's hard. I know that it's difficult to watch your child go through something. But let me ask you a question. Some of the greatest lessons in your life, did you learn it through your successes or did you learn it through your failures? And you don't have to comment and answer that, right? But I don't know, and I pray that, I don't know if you're a person of faith, but if you are and you have a relationship with God, the best thing that you could do is pray for that person. Pray for your daughter, right? The best thing you could do is pray for your child and cover your child, right? That is the greatest thing that you could do for your child. And in the midst of that, also providing resources, right? I shared this with a client not too long ago. She had a partner who was abusive and has some abusive tendencies, and he also relied on her for a lot of stuff, and she felt like she had to do everything he needed her to do, and she had to neglect herself, and it was a very unhealthy dynamic. And one of the things I shared with her, and I never really tell people what to do, right? I always put that in people's court. But one of the things I shared with her is this is what I recommend for you. I recommend that you provide options for this person. When you are providing options, because most people stay places, hear me, Jay, most people stay places, they stay stuck in the sameness, in the sea of sameness, because they don't know any other way. They feel like that is the only way. But when you are able to provide someone whose back is against the wall with options, even for a rainy day, I promise you, it would be impactful. And so I know it's hard to be like, I just can't see my daughter going through this. This is painful. But figure out options. Like, you know what? Take her out to lunch one day. If you have a relationship with her, take her out to lunch. Like, look, I know that you're going through some stuff right now, but here's a list of resources if you ever need them. And you would be surprised at how many people will take that up. It gives an ounce of hope. There's some people who don't want the help. You're absolutely right. For those who said it earlier, there's some people who don't want help, but then there's people who do. And sometimes it's like one phone call or one option put out there can help. It's stuck on repeat. Now, what is going on, Facebook? Y'all need to get it together. Or is that what you're saying? It's stuck on repeat. Oh, did I have I had a moment. My bad. Stuck on repeat. People get stuck in the same sea of sameness because they feel like they have no option. And when you are able to, let me tell you something, the most amazing thing that I could ever do for my clients is to give them options. You'd be surprised when we're going through depression and when we're going through things. Y'all hear me talking so wise now, but when I have my depression moments, you think I didn't know anything that I'm teaching right now. And it's hard. Hey, auntie. It's hard when you're going through the pressure to try to figure out things on your own. But when you have someone that says, look, here's some options for you. If you need a shelter, here's a shelter. If you need this is what you need. And that would be for their rainy day. And you'd be surprised at how many folks will be able to move in a different way, to have a ray of hope because of that. Jay says, I have her and her 5 children. I have her and her 5 children have lived with me without him. Okay, so that's a start. And we could talk definitely more about this offset, but recognizing that the support, the providing options are so very important when we talk about how to support someone who has an addiction. And it's hard to support people that have an addiction when you don't know they have an addiction. But I believe that everything that's in the dark will one day come to the light. So there are folks who come and sit in my office and they show up one way, and by the time we in session 10, they done showed up a whole nother way, because now they feel safe and comfortable to share. And if people feel safe, they're going to share. All of y'all share because y'all feel safe. And we have to provide those. I empower you with safety so you can empower others with safety, okay? Shelly, ain't it a beautiful, wonderful, sensational thing where you could give marvelous suggestions and you, in the time of your turmoil and mess, can't use it for yourself? That is hard, right? And I'm going to tell you why it's hard. Because look, I got to put this over here right quick. So just bear with me for just a second, okay? All right, you can't really see me, but just watch my hands, okay? Just watch my hands. When we're going through depression, this is what we see, right? You see this? Now, I want y'all all right now, if you driving, don't do this, okay? If you driving, don't do it. But if you're not driving, I want you to do this right now. Do this right now. And then I want you to tell me what you can see from the left to the right, okay? If you driving or you cooking or something, don't do it, okay? But I want you to do this right quick. When we're going through depression, this is what we see. I need y'all to know this is real. We see this. We see this. We can't see left or right. We have no options. We are feeling clouded. When we're anxious, when we're stressed out, when we're going through trauma, when we're feeling like we can't understand nothing that's happening in our life, we just see what's in front of us. But what happens is when we are provided options, we now have an open lens. Now we can use our peripheral vision to see other things beyond what's in front of us. And so we have to empower people. We have to empower people to stop looking like this at life and to start looking like this. Because when we're looking at like this, we feel like that's when the suicide, that's when the depression, I shouldn't be alive. That's when all that stuff is hitting us. And we're missing it. I hope that was a clear illustration. But it's so impactful. People who are addicted have this mentality. That's all they see is the addiction, because that's an escape. It is now a learned behavior. It is now something that is reinforcing them to forget about what's happening to them. And they're killing themselves. People who are on heavy medications, people who are on heavy drugs and alcohol, and who are doing some very risky stuff, are killing themselves every day, because that is now an escape to not deal with whatever it is that started the process. So that leads me to my last question tonight. How to overcome addiction? How does a person overcome addiction? A person overcomes addiction first by acknowledgement. You have to acknowledge that you have an addiction. You have to acknowledge that something's not okay. You have to acknowledge, and I appreciate one of the people who shared on the page today that she had a sexual addiction, and she had to acknowledge it. She had to say, no, this is not who I am. And shared that in truth and vulnerable, in her most vulnerable place. She shared that. Why? Because that is the first step to healing, acknowledging that I have a problem. Y'all, I would pull out the can of cornstarch. I need y'all to know I have a can in my car. That is not healthy. I'm telling y'all this because I want y'all to know that I'm never going to teach at you. I'm going to teach what I'm teaching myself. We're growing together. Okay? So recognizing that the first step to healing and the first step to be, like moving away from addiction is to acknowledge that there's a problem. The second thing, you have to go back. Now, this is some hard work. And y'all know we've been on this Break and Chains project, and we believe in breaking chains. So if you don't want no chains broken, then this is not the place for you. If you don't want it broken, this ain't the place for you. But on the Break and Chains project, with Break and Chains project, we believe in going back to the first place. Where did the addiction start? And oftentimes I ask people that when they come in, they like, I'm addicted to having sex with all 20 people every week. Okay, that sounds okay. Nikki, hey, it ain't Argo. It's great value. Shelly, is great value. Okay, we on a budget. Anyway, so definitely recognizing what caused the addiction. Nikki, you came on in a really good time, okay? We're talking about how to overcome addiction. And tonight we're talking about first acknowledging that there's a problem, right? Don't try to be laughing at me because I'm on a budget. But we also talked about going back to what caused the addiction. I'm going to let the starch go. I'm telling you right now. Y'all hold me accountable. And I hold y'all accountable, right? What caused the addiction? What caused the addiction? Going back to that. For those who are dealing with addictions right now, we could be addicted to... Y'all, I need y'all to know that we could be addicted. I love food, okay? Let me tell you, but I'm going to be transparent tonight because I need you to know that we are going to... In 2017, we're going to be healed, happy, and whole. We're going to be set free and delivered from a whole lot of stuff. Let me tell you, I love food, okay? And I don't just eat until I'm satisfied. I eat until I'm bulging over, right? And so for me, that's a problem. Now, I don't want to say I'm not addicted to food, because it's not like without food, I ain't going to live. But some of us could be addicted to those things. It does not always have to be drugs and alcohol. Some of us are addicted to men. Some of us are addicted to women. Some of us are addicted to things. Oh, I just got to have that. If I don't have that in my life, I can't. Some of us are addicted to marijuana. We addicted. We need to be real. We have to be real about that first. We have to be real and say, this is a problem for me. I want to be free from this. I want to be free. I want to be healed. I want to be happy, and I want to be whole, and I want to be different. I don't want this to control me anymore. And so when I asked the question, what caused the addiction in the first place? What were you escaping? What were you escaping in order to get into that addicted place? Shelly, I stopped smoking crack. I stopped smoking cigarettes, but I can't stop eating. Go ahead and eat and put all them emojis, okay? Have you a nice little table and make a nice little spread for yourself. Because we're going to eat, but we're not going to be addicted to food. And one of the things that we have to learn how to not do is allow another addiction to cover our current addiction. That's just like me stopping cornstarch right now and then going and smoking weed. I now replace my addiction with something else. That is still a sign that we are not healed. Okay? That is still a sign that we're not healed. Mm-hmm. I'm challenging you to go to the place where the addiction first started. Oh, you know what? This addiction started right after my mother left. Wow. And as you think about that, as you think about the place of your initial hurt and what caused you to want to escape that, now you have power over that addiction. When you can name the thing that caused the addiction, now you have power. It's that simple. Try it and see it. Don't just test my words, okay? You got to kill it at the root. Absolutely, auntie. Shelly, everyone says, oh, Shell, you look fine. I feel horrible. Yep. We can mask ourselves. We talked about that yesterday. We can mask ourselves. Oh, you look fine, girl. You look like you're doing good. Okay. But we recognize that in ourselves that we're not happy. That is a sign. That is a sign that we need healing. When you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see and you can't even speak life to yourself, that is a sign that you need healing. Because if you're not speaking life to yourself, then what else can you possibly be speaking? Shelly, when my mother and father divorced, absolutely. These traumas can have an impact on us. And we don't recognize that or I've heard people say, you know what, my father wasn't in my life. And so I didn't know what it was like to have a man around me. And I became a sex addict. So I enjoyed being with men. People have said that before. You would be so surprised at how the addictive behaviors can start simply by something traumatizing, something as simple as my father wasn't in my life and now I'm addicted to XYZ. And it's not that you're blaming that person, but you internalize that trauma and you didn't heal from it because you probably didn't know how. But somebody on the street said you was beautiful. And you said, okay, well, I've never heard nobody tell me that. So I now know that this person must like me. Let me give them myself. And it become an addictive behavior. And I'm just throwing out illustrations so you all know that they can emerge from so many different things. The key is to acknowledge where it came from. Because when we can acknowledge where it came from, we now have power over it. And that's how you overcome an addiction. For those who tuned in late, I started off and we talked about addiction. What is addiction? And it was one of the definitions dictionary.com said, to be enslaved to a habit or a practice that psychologically or physically alters who you are. Hear me. Hear that. To be enslaved means that you are out of control to whatever it is that's controlling you. To be enslaved to a habit or to be enslaved to a practice. That's real. And there are a lot of people who are out of control and they need help. And we're too blind to see it because we can't even help ourselves. Shelly says, they both love me. And I spent weekends with him, but I wanted him there. Oh my God, the tears are flowing. Let the tears flow. Let the tears flow because it's cleansing your soul. It's cleansing it's cleansing you. It is cleansing you because now you're dealing with the root. You're dealing with the root, Shelly. It's hard, but you're dealing with the root. Loved me so much, I wanted them to be together, and it killed you. And there's so many children in this world that would blame themselves because their father doesn't want to be in their life. I need you to know that we can't just grow up and tell well, your father was, I don't know. We can't just do that. There are young girls right now who are dying on the inside because their father doesn't want to be in their life. And then when she becomes a teenager and she becomes sexually promiscuous, we want to blame the kid. No, we need to recognize the factor and help our children to heal. Why? Because we're going to be saving them from stuff that we had to deal with. And some of us as parents need to heal ourselves because our children see that we're still struggling with addiction. And if we don't have hope in ourselves, we can't help our children. We can't help our families. We can't help nobody. We're a living lie. We are a living lie. That's why I'm transparent, y'all. That's why I tell y'all, yeah, I like cornstarch. I really do. I feel real good about it. I love it. But I recognize it's not good for me. It's not good for me. And I know that. And so I'm putting it out there to let you all know that I'm not just saying, hey, y'all, y'all need to get free. No, we all need to be free. There's things you ain't telling me right now on this video. You're not telling me that you're addicted to certain things. There's things you're not saying right now because it's not for me to always know. But in the midst of that, you still got to be healed. Or that addiction will continue to run you. It will continue to control you. It will continue to pull you into a place where you are out of control.